got a group of young men all hanging out on the road doing what they want around the world, and things can kind of get loose, should we say. How do you manage the interpersonal relationships between them? If one's beating the other, then one might get a bit knocked. Those situations always get messy. There is a big difference between racing a junior category and racing an elite men's category. For me, their technique is probably the best technique that's out there. Maybe the disparity between the biggest budget teams and the lowest budget teams will be noticed more.
Alan Milway, welcome back to the Downtime Podcast, mate. It's that time of year again where we sit down and chat team moves. But how are you first?
Well, first off, thanks for having me. It's always good to be here. I love your studio setup,
Thanks,
and thanks for the welcome.
Good to have you back for sure. Let's just jump straight in. I think one of the most exciting things for 2026 is the junior men moving up into elite. So we've got Asa Vermette, Max and Auran, and Tyler Waite, Ollie Clark are probably the big names moving up. Give us your thoughts on that, the level of disruption that can bring, and your view on that move.
I say it's very exciting. I think for the sport as a whole and for fans, it's really, really exciting. I think that there is a big difference between racing a junior category and racing an elite men's category. And I think the challenge for those lads will be trying to race the elites as they race juniors, because there's no doubt the speed's there. And I think a lot of people are saying, well, if there's 30 males going into the final, 5 of those places are probably taken up with these lads.
Yeah.
But it unfortunately, it's not that simple. It really isn't. And I think that their challenge will be all of a sudden you've got your, for want of a better word, idols, the people you look up to, whether they're teammates now, with Max and Till. They're there. They're at the top of the hill with you. It's quite hard to maybe find your place and mentally find your place. How am I going to cope with this?
Yeah.
But I'm really excited to see how they get on.
Well, we saw Jordan do it the first time of Askin, right? In Lenzerheide, like show that you can make that leap up. Admittedly, probably that win maybe set him back afterwards because you're kind of dealing with that and the realization of it. But
I'd say that you've kind of encapsulated the situation there. He comes into elite, doesn't know any different, wins the race. Everyone's like, oh, well, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, Jordan's he's had to go through his struggles and come back up. And the bike rider doesn't change. The fitness doesn't change. These things in a small period of time don't change, but it's what's between the ears, I think, honestly, is the real challenge.
Yeah. But they seem to have an ease about them. And it looked in juniors anyway, not that it's coming easy because that downplays the amount of work that these guys put in, but you hear about Max until they're having fun, they're not taking life too seriously, and they're not training super hard yet. They've got elite beating times on track, admittedly not under exact same conditions and in that category with that pressure, but they've been doing it with a level of maybe slightly lesser equipment in some instances and a little bit or a lot less training in some. Like, do you think that they are set up to up the game? Like, maybe it takes them a while to find their feet, but do you think it's another level up from what we saw Jackson and Jordan bring?
Yeah, I do. And I think those boys would be, for me, their technique is probably the best technique that's out there. The way they stand tall, the way they drop their heels, the way they kind of stay centered on the bike, they're not moving around an awful lot, the way they make the bike do the work and the way they corner. So we talk about them training or not training or how much they're doing, that, they're in a very good place on that bike and they ride the bike very well. So if they're posting those times and looking comfortable, that sort of shows that their technique is underpinning that. And when you've got that underpinning technique, the sky's the limit, really, because you don't watch them and necessarily think that they're going to crash every 2 seconds. And some of the other riders we see at the elite category do look as though they're on the ragged edge.
Yeah, for sure.
So that to me is the most exciting thing. And when I watch them trackside, I think they make this bike riding look good.
Yeah, well, you can look back at the end of the season, which, Asa put down an incredible run, fastest time of the day, arguably looked more in control than Jackson's kind of 11 out of 10 run, which was spurred on by the expectations and the necessity to deliver with Loic, in theory, at the top of the hill, ready to drop. But yeah, I think that's a good example of Jackson on the absolute limit, or at least looking like it was, and then Asa looking like there was still a little bit left and actually still pipping him.
Well, this is it. And that's why we race bikes, isn't it? Because of the excitement. That whole Monston with Gracie's absolutely monster crash, Jackson putting in a run where it looked like he was going to crash again and again, but the pace stayed high, and then Loic doesn't turn up to the start gate, and everyone was like, "This is unbelievable." So yeah, I always look back on the last season and sort of those exciting highlights because they sort of spur you on and motivate you for why we put the work in that we put in and travel about and do all the things we do, because that's why we do it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, for the thrill of it.
Yeah.
What can teams do to help these juniors? Like we've definitely got some smart teams behind a lot of these riders. What if you were, looking after one of these young guns coming up, what would you be doing to try and help them?
I think I bang on about this a lot, but I'd be trying to focus just on the process of what they do. Let's get the bike set up and let's use some data to prove whether we're right or wrong. Let's get you against the clock in certain instances, but not in others. So I think really that definition of trying to consider when they're on their bike, are they playing and learning, or are they being judged? Are we kind of putting you into this zone where you need to now deliver a run now? Because that makes them, I think it gives them an expectation. And testing sometimes isn't something, sometimes you can get a bit carried away with testing and you put in a faster run than the old dog and you think, you know what, I've got him covered. But the old dogs know that it's not a race. I'm doing an 8 out of 10 run. I need to get the data. I need to learn where I'm at. And they save it for the big occasion. So probably trying to manage that and explain that to a rider, not to get too carried away. If you're a little bit faster than one of the elite guys, brilliant. But don't get complacent on that. Don't get carried away. Let's just keep moving forward. And again, manage their expectations that maybe you shouldn't go out and try and win the first World Cup. Just put in a really good run. That you can't control where other people are going to finish. If you put in a banger run and it's 10th, amazing.
Yeah.
If you put in a banger run and it's 12th, amazing. If you put in a banger run and it's 3rd, we're even happier. So I think trying to manage the expectations and the pressure that they'll probably feel.
Oh, it's going to be so exciting. I can't wait for it to get going. And one of those juniors has made a fairly significant change. Ollie Clark's moved to Mondraker from MS. That is a big shift. A lot of change in product, but he doesn't seem to be hanging about. He was 8th in seeding at Hardline, and I know he wasn't super happy with that. He felt like he had plenty more in the tank for race day. And he's been out in New Zealand putting in the graph, getting everything dialed in. But that's going to be an exciting one to watch, I think, because maybe the most under regarded rider in that crop of riders coming up. I think maybe even though he got that win, he doesn't seem to get talked about as much as your Max and Till and Asa and Tyler.
I think he's generally sort of on the, when you were to rank him on results, he'd probably rank lower than when you watch him ride a bike, and again showing potential. And he's a big strong lad. He's a bruiser of a guy. He's like Brooke McDonald 0.2 or whatever. He really is. But for me, what's an interesting one is that Mondraker setup when you put him with Ronan and Pinky. It's like how that's going to work together, and because they're all kind of wild riders, it's going to be really interesting to see. And I don't know how well they know each other and how the work they're doing together, but I think that's going to be really exciting for Mondraker. And Ronan's not going to want to get beaten by someone who was a junior, and neither's Pinky, so they're all going to push really hard, aren't they? Yeah,
well, and Pinky we've seen what Pinky's capable of. It hasn't quite fallen into place for Pinky yet, but when it does, there's clearly a race winning capable rider.
And I think that team setup, when we talk about managing expectations, Jorge who's there and Martin Morrison is there, those guys are really level-headed. They've been in the game a long time. They've done different roles. They're not going to get too carried away, and they're not going to be too up and down. And I think that will help them. Not if you're coming into that environment, you want to know your team's got your back if you've had a good day and if you've had a bad day.
Yeah, but 3 riders going for the win in one team. It's always interesting when you've got that level of drive and commitment and expectation in every rider in the tent, basically.
Yeah, and from a management point of view, because this is sort of more of the stuff I have to think about now, is how do you manage the interpersonal relationships between them? Because if one's beating the other, then one might get a bit narked, and this young gun coming up, and who does he think he is? All of this stuff is, you need to manage it. You want everyone to perform to their best.
Yeah.
Yeah, rather them than me. Good luck, boys.
Good one to watch for sure. And another one of those juniors Asa Vermette is joined by a new teammate this year, and he's not lacking in speed and experience. Aaron Gwynn joins Frameworks. That's got to be one of the most exciting moves of the off-season.
Yeah, that is an exciting move. I feel as though kind of since Gwynny went away from these kind of classic factory rides, he maybe hasn't found his home.
Yeah.
He seems to have bounced around a little bit, putting his own program together. And again, he's another guy that he's kind of on the backside of his career, but when he turns up and puts in a time against the clock, it is very fast. And he's got a lot of experience. And I do think that he's probably going to bring that to Frameworks. I hope that they can tap into him for that.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of it there. And with someone like Asa, that sort of the mentorship he's got of Nico, I'm sure will be supported with what Aaron can do with
the
with
vibe
him.
Certainly in Tasmania between that crew seems very strong. Like there's a good rapport between everyone. It feels like it's an open book between Aaron and Asa. Like I feel Aaron thinks he can learn stuff from Asa and vice versa. So
you'd hope so.
It's quite cool.
I think that's really important. That I'm sure there would have been discussions about how it would work, because you'd want to use Aaron Gwynn for all of his experience to try and help with this up and coming rider. And I'm sure that from Aaron's point of view, he's probably going to understand that Asa is someone he's got to keep up with. So it's kind of tables turned a little bit in that respect, but it will keep his drive high. And the American brands, I think that's cool to bring them, to bring them together.
Definitely. I think a few people have commented it's the first time in a while that Aaron hasn't had a brand as part of the setup that you could question whether that, it's been tires or something where you're like, are they really any good? Like no one really knows, but you could go down that checklist of sponsors that Frameworks have got and you'd be like, yeah, solid. Like I'm not going to question any of that, which is only going to help performance, I think. And maybe we're already seeing that. I don't think I've seen Aaron ride quite as aggressively as he has in like the launch video and at Hardline and stuff. So
yeah, these things, when you've got those products that you don't have to test in inverted commas, they're good, and it's sort of fine tuning them. Like I agree. I remember years ago, I think he had Onza tires as a sponsor, and I was like, bloody hell, they're going to develop a tire as he races.
Yeah.
And obviously he'd have gone to a tire that probably didn't have Onza ridden on the sidewall to race, but there is that expectation that at some point you're going to have to get onto something substandard potentially to help bring that level up, and you're always chopping and changing between your kit. Doesn't help, does it?
No, it keeps some consistency. Yeah, I'm excited to watch how that lot get on. I noticed something really interesting the other day riding a fast, rocky track, the kind of trail that would normally leave my hands buzzing by the bottom. I just fitted the Loam carbon bar from P&W Components, and it was one of those moments where you really notice the difference. The trail buzz was noticeably reduced, but the steering still felt really direct. P&W use high-grade pre-preg carbon and have tuned the layup to balance vertical compliance with steering stiffness, along with a bar sweep designed for the geometry of modern bikes. The result is a bar that takes the edge off rough trails and makes long days on the bike more comfortable. It's tested to the highest independent standards, meaning it's good for downhill and e-bike use, and paired with a lifetime warranty, it's hardly surprising that it's rapidly become P&W's best-selling product. It's available in 31.8 or 35mm clamp sizes with 25, 38 or 50mm rise, and you can check it out over at pnwcomponents.com with direct UK shipping now available at pnwcomponents.co.uk. Obviously YT went pop from a team perspective last year, which was sad to see, but things move on and we've got some big names as a result moving into new homes for this season. The first of those is Valley Hole to Commensal Schwalbe Lazur. Excited for that one?
Yeah, I am. I think that she's, from my understanding, she was pretty much asked, what would you like? How do we make this work? And I know she's coached by that that setup, if you see what I mean. That family. Cecile works with her. And I think that they're training partners on that team, and that would be really good, because I think that as long as she's got the support in terms of at the race weekend, how she wants it, yeah, she's a motivated girl. Her girlfriend was at the Winter Olympics doing incredibly well, and I think that will drive her on even more, won't it? If she's seeing that success with her partner, then she's probably thinking, hey, I'm up for this season coming.
Well, this is it. And the bike, we know, is competitive, right? It can compete with anything else out there. So she's got that on her side.
She's got a great package there. So she's always dangerous.
She is always dangerous.
She's always dangerous.
And I think maybe a little bit of frustration and anger carried across still from the 25 season. It wasn't the season she wanted. And I think that fires her up more than anything.
She's the big difference between her and Gracie, obviously, who I coach, is you can tell that the rawness that drives Valley is that competitive, like, I want to win this and I'm not happy if I don't. And I think what drives Gracie is having fun and going fast on a bike. And there is a subtle difference there. Gracie will ride her best when she's in one mindset. And I would suggest that Valley probably is in a different mindset for her to ride the best. And when you're outside of it looking in, it's kind of cool because who's going to be in that frame of mind to give it everything, because the times are tight, and you want to make those last little fractions. What do we need to do? Do we, is it sort of carrot or is it stick? And that again is an interesting thought for people working with these athletes, I'm sure, to, how do we get the best from them?
Yeah. And there's plenty of fast women on that squad. So Lisa Bauman, good friend of Valley's and kind of training partner. Yeah. And they're joined by a new junior who I've heard a lot of good things about, Tilly Bodle, I think. I'm going to probably butcher a few names here, so apologies. But yeah,
I've heard good things. I think, is she Antipodean?
I believe Australian.
Yeah, I think I've heard good things about this next crop coming through. I was just speaking to Eris about this on our training camp the other week, about this sort of next crew that's coming through from New Zealand. She says there's loads of fast girls, and I think the same goes for Australia as well. So yeah, it's the next wave of youth women coming through, I really think are going to step up the game again. I'm working with a couple of girls from the UK who their skills are unbelievable on a bike, and to get them into a training program and a structure and something that's got a pathway to it at this age, sky's the limit for those girls. It's really good, and it's not something that we've really seen before, because the first crop of girls that came through generally did it because my brother did it or my family member did it, and they didn't have the coaching aspect that sort of underpinned that. But now there's more of a structure behind them.
Yeah, it's incredible to see, isn't it? There's a lot more support for the junior women. Oisin then is another one from the YT squad, now over to Trek. I mean, that's a hell of a squad there, right? Ollie Davis, Lockie, Matt, Sasha, and now Oisin joining. But a big change for Oisin, again, like suspension, tyres, bike. There's a lot of work to do in the off-season.
Yeah, I think that the Trek team, I think it would be fair to say, probably underperformed last year. I think they didn't get the results they probably could have done. And it was quite an interesting setup at Mont Saint-Anne. So when we had the race was done and dusted, the two teams that stayed behind were Trek with Oisin and the Syndicate with Colby. Yeah. And, they were straight on the bikes. So although there are a lot of changes, I think he's been getting ahead of them. And I'm really happy those boys have, found a home, because that would have been a horrible thing to have gone through. I can only imagine. I know Oisin, we were in Lenzerheide, and he was getting changed in the lift station into, I believe it was gear that he might have bought from the shop.
Yeah, he bought it at the bottom of the hill, I think.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, it's difficult. I think those situations always get messy, and it's really hard to end them completely on a level, and look someone in the eye and shake a bad hands and feel as though it was all done bang on. Yeah. And I think Oisin probably suffered a tough summer. So to know that he's got that is great to hear, really. Yeah, he's a great lad.
He's going to be fired up for sure. He's another rider, I think, that he wants to prove people wrong and show what he can do. So yeah, I'm excited to see how he gets on. But yeah, really competitive squad to work with. And again, you've got 4 elite male riders that could all see themselves on a podium on a weekend. They've all got that potential, right?
Absolutely. And they've sort of maxed out that category, because you can have 4 per category. And that was something that Commencal sort of have struggled with because of Dylan, unfortunately, having to move on simply because of that ruling. So these squads, it'd be interesting to see whether the squads keep 4 elite males or whether they spread themselves out more, or whether the squads keep getting bigger, because there is the potential to have quite a big team. And when there's limited places available, do these brands want to make sure their bike is in the final? And that takes a lot of investment.
And some out of industry support for Trek, which is nice to see. They've got this brand Unbroken as a fairly significant sponsor on the team. I think it's some kind of recovery product. But yeah, good to see that stuff starting to trickle in.
Yeah, I think that teams have been trying to show the coverage that is is being gathered and the viewership and how it's been spread. And we are sent stuff from Warner Brothers, and I'll be honest with you, sometimes I'm like, really? I think this needs to be audited. It's a bit like me sort of just blowing my own trumpet and using it as the official statement. This is exactly what's happening. But maybe it is. But I think that we want to show the coverage that can be gathered. And it's kind of cool to see. I even saw there was an advert for a documentary when I was in Germany in the hotel. It just came on, and Lockie was being interviewed on that. And I was like, hey, this is brilliant, just to see. And then Tracy Mosley was on that. And I was like, oh, here we go. I'm just in my hotel with the TV on, Eurosport or whatever, and it's popped up. So it is becoming, I think downhill mountain biking is finding its place within cycling.
Okay.
As a general discipline. I think that previously when you talked about cycling, you would think about road cycling, and off-road it would just be cross-country. But now I think we're starting to see downhill sort of be dropped in a little bit more, with a little bit more equality potentially.
Yeah. I mean, you've arrived here today dripping in Adidas or Adidas. Tell us about Norco Adidas or Adidas race division.
What a sponsor. Yeah, amazing. It's something that I know Greg and Ellie and the crew at Norco have been working on for a little while to bring Adidas in. And it's been, if I'm honest with you, it's been a really busy couple of weeks. We're out in a training camp in Italy. And then at the end of the camp, we flew to Adidas HQ in Germany and got to meet the crew. And it's a huge campus there. And just sort of see what was really interesting was they were trying to show us what they're looking to do and how they want the athletes to help them with that. And I thought that was a brilliant way to go about it. So the athletes had the context. Sometimes a sponsor comes in and there's no real context to what they want to do within that sort of industry or sport or what they're looking to do, that you're just thinking, oh, we're just going to wear a logo and there's going to be some budget put into the team, and that's where the relationship sort of starts and finishes. But honestly, it couldn't be further from the truth with Adidas. And like to chat to the shoe designers and to talk about some of the other aspects from a performance standpoint that fascinate me, and I know Adidas support in other sports. Yeah, it was mind blowing. It really was sort of a bucket list day for me.
Open some doors, maybe.
Yeah, I think that really it's more of a collaborative effort. That's really what I felt, and that is exciting from a performance point of view, because ultimately I feel as though they're there for the performance. They want the athletes to do better, to do their best. And how can we support you in doing that?
Yeah.
And they've got so much experience, so much expertise. And some of the questions I was asking them, you could tell they were like, oh, we're happy to have the question because we've got the answers.
Nice.
So yeah, it's I'm looking forward, and I get to represent Nottingham Forest. That I'm a massive Forest fan. So.
Perfect. You're living every dream.
Yeah.
How will that look for the team? Like, is everyone going to be in Adidas riding gear? Is it shoes? Like, how will we see it at the races?
So they're sort of working on that concept at the moment, and I think they've got a longer term concept. So we also work with POC, and they're providing riding gear and everything. So we're trying to sort of align the brands and align the imagery, I guess is the right word. And they were showing us some mock-ups of the kit, which is really cool. And also the different options, because they want the one aspect that I probably can talk about that I thought was fascinating was they wanted the athletes to feel as though they were wearing what they wanted to be wearing. And I thought that was really cool, because some people want to have a certain look. Some people like to be alternative in their look, and they maybe don't feel they can express that when you're in a uniform kit. And I thought that was really enlightening for me to hear that. I was thinking, wow, actually, okay, they want the athlete to feel the most comfortable. Because I know, without naming names, some of the athletes in the team with some previous kits maybe didn't feel the most comfortable in the colour scheme or the design. So for them to turn up, if you turn up feeling good and looking good and get on your bike, we know that's another marginal gain. You just feel excited to be on your bike.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm excited to see how it turns up at the World Cup, so that'd be cool. And you mentioned the athletes. How is Eris doing? Because it was a rough year for her last year, right?
Yeah, the poor girl had a really rough go at it. Coming up into elite from such a successful junior career, she goes very fast, but when she comes off the bike, she comes off badly. But she's in a great place. Big respect to her crew back at home, like her physio that I work quite closely with through the process has been fantastic. And she's done her training. She came up to the first training camp in January And I was really impressed. I was like, wow, she's strong. And there's no kind of residual pain, which is nice.
Great, yeah.
And I think my job with Eris is trying to back her down a little bit.
I was going to say, is there any residual fear? But it sounds like probably not.
No, that girl does not know that word. But we had a really good opportunity. This training camp, I was able to take her away and do some one-to-one stuff and try to take away that almost focus on just speed and just say, let's focus on some fundamental stuff, because we do see, being trackside, we do see some fundamental stuff that could be improved.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to go flat out, the technique reverts to what you know. And if you're trying to break that cycle, put them on a different bike, put them on a trail, put them on something that they're not thinking at a million mile an hour, and just repeat it and get a feel for it. And I find that really rewarding, because when they learn so quickly, you know, you're trying to get a point across to them, they pick it up, you see it, they then completely blow the roof off their sort of, you know, increase in performance in terms of their curve of learning. And you're like, oh, okay, if we can now implement that on a downhill track, there'll be some real marked improvements, I think, in her riding as well.
So do you think we'll get to see the Eris that we were kind of hoping to see in Elite last year? Because there was a lot of speculation around what damage she'd do, and we didn't, unfortunately, really get to see it. But
I completely agree. I think that's it. It's she's somebody, like we talked about with the lads coming through from junior to Elite, where I really feel as though she was like, I could win this. And that's great. But the problem was that with the steps backwards she had from the hard line at the beginning of the year, she didn't have that sort of runway into the performance. But I'm hoping we've sort of been able to put that runway in place now.
Unfortunately, since we recorded the episode with Alan a couple of weeks ago, we've had news that Eris has been injured out at Crankworks in New Zealand. So we've got Alan on the line to give us a quick update. Alan, over to you.
Oh, Chris, it's not the phone-in that I'd want to be giving you for sure. Unfortunately, Eris had a huge crash down in New Zealand at Crankworks. And unfortunately, the injuries are pretty significant. She's broken both her femurs, and they're quite bad breaks. There's quite a lot of displacement. So that's obviously, she's needed an operation to put rods in both legs. She's fractured her pelvis. She's broken some bones in her vertebrae, and she's also had a partially collapsed lung. So it's a horrible crash, and no one wishes a crash on anyone. And, you know, obviously we're very sad that poor Eris has had a crash, but especially after the crashes that she's had, you know, it seems terribly unfair. She's worked so hard to come back from her previous injuries. She was on fantastic form at the training camp, and the day before she'd won whip-off, and we were talking about warm-ups and sectioning the track and all sorts just hours before. So yeah, unfortunately, that's probably the news no one wants to hear.
Yeah, that is unfortunate, man. And how is Eris? Have you had the chance to speak to her?
Yeah, I've been in touch. So she's been in and out of surgery and on a lot of medication. I've had good contact with her mum, and also Connor, her mechanic, and bless Connor, he's been with her every step of the way. I've sent her a couple of messages, but she's doing okay. She's in remarkable spirits considering, and I think it's worth passing that on to people that Eris is upbeat anyway, and she's trying to stay upbeat. And yeah, we're trying to kind of see the next steps in terms of getting her home. She's in the hospital. That's the last information I had, and that was probably yesterday, I think I heard from my mum. So yeah, we're just wishing her all the best. She put something out on social media, so nothing I've said you won't be able to find there, which I think is probably fair. I don't think it's worth, you know, these sorts of things. I always want to respect the athlete's privacy, and if they're happy to share this information, then I'm happy to sort of reiterate it. But it'll be a big comeback for her. These injuries, they're pretty, like I said before, they're pretty significant. But and unfortunately, I've had experience working with athletes who've had these injuries. So G. Atherton's leg break isn't dissimilar to this. So that sort of puts it into perspective, the significance of it and the severity of it. But G. Atherton was bloody at top of Kilimanjaro last month or whatever. So do you see what I mean? She can get back. She will. This too shall pass, as G's told me on a number of occasions. And I think Eris needs to bear that in mind and stay positive.
Yeah, nothing. Certainly something we never want to see, and we don't wish it on anyone. But we've seen Eris recover from horrific injuries in the past and come back strong. So, yeah, we wish her all the best for a speedy recovery, and hopefully we'll see her back near the top of the timesheets at some point in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how about Lena as well? She settling in and ready to go for another season?
Lena is settling in. She's come out of her shell. She's caused me all sorts of bother. I had to sign her into the gym in San Remo because she's under 18.
Yeah.
And my Italian's no good. And I'm trying to explain that I was her guardian. And the guy thought I was her dad. And I was like, I just could not handle if she was my daughter. But with sign language, you're having quite a good laugh about it. She's absolutely brilliant. She's kind of finding her place in the team, I think. She's a quiet girl, but she's having a lot more fun. She's enjoying herself. She loves the darts.
Really? Okay.
She's really into. She's always watching darts. She loves her football.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. I think this year we'll be able to see Lena really attack that category because she's a very competitive person. She's hard on herself. She doesn't need anyone to tell her, there's no lacking in effort. It's all just fine-tuning where the effort goes, should we say.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, because Ellie's the only one, Ellie and Matilda, the two going up, I think.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the junior women's field remains, plus some new rider additions as well. So, yeah, that's going to be exciting to watch. We should come back to that final YT rider who was looking for a new home. Andy Kolb found his way onto Santa Cruz Syndicate, a bit of a dream for him. And, I'm excited to see how he fits in there. I think that's a good fit.
Yeah, I think it is. I think he's a very different character to someone like Jackson, I would think. But he kind of holds himself in high regard, quite rightly. He knows what he wants. He knows what he needs. And I think what's good with Colby is he'll be able to explain that to the team. They've got a new team manager. Rob Copeland's come in. I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah, I think you can. And I was going to ask your thoughts about that. So that's Steve Peat's old sports psychologist. It's quite a change from sports psychologist to team manager. Yeah,
I think I've known Rob for years. I've worked with Rob because he worked with Greg as well and some other athletes. So I've known Rob for years, and he's a very intelligent, clued up guy who's been involved with the sport from that side for a long time, so he understands the discipline. But also from his university work, I believe he runs a department. So he's used to managing people and understanding how that all works. How that fits into this travelling circus on the road will be new for him, but he's known PT for so long, and he's been very proactive in his role to sort of make sure that he's trying to understand the landscape, I think, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's been very well supported from the syndicate in that way. And I'm sure he'll do a hell of a job.
Yeah, and a good person to have to help kind of new members into the team and to find their feet, I think.
I think from a team dynamic point of view, who better to understand when things are, extroverts and introverts and someone who's trying to override someone else than a psychologist. They can sort of stand back and see it unfold and probably have the language and the vocabulary to explain to that person how we can, how they as a team can help them.
Yeah, interesting stuff. And rumours of a new Santa Cruz team truck. The old one was getting small in the grand scheme of race trucks these days. How much difference can something like that make?
It will give them a lot more paperwork and a lot more headaches.
From experience.
I don't know. I think these things, when you go to a flyaway race, you don't have them. I think we're going to go to more flyaway races. So we're going to have a setup that not necessarily scales back. Trucks are incredible. Don't get me wrong. They're fantastic places. And where you really notice it is when it's really, really hot or really, really cold or really, really wet, because they give you a more stable environment. You're not coming into a cold, damp pit. You can get in and get warm. When it's really hot, you can get in some air conditioning. And they're very much first world problems to have, but they are nice if you've got that truck.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that goes along with that, and making sure you've got the right stuff on the truck. They're great. But I'm a little jaded because I know the effort that goes into them. Like Tom has to do so much stuff with our truck. He deals with it, and he does a great job.
Yeah, like all the carnets and various things to travel in and out of Europe and stock levels, and it's not as straightforward as you'd hope, right? It's not straightforward,
but and I think I do wonder whether there's a middle ground to be had. But in this it's a bit of peacocking, isn't it? Teams love to say, hey, check out my big truck.
It's a marketing thing as well, I guess, isn't it? It's a big logo. It looks cool. Like everyone talked about Orbea FMD last year because Tony turned up with a 2-story pink truck.
There you go.
So it works.
It works.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see the new graphics on our truck because I've not seen them.
You've got an update. Oh, of course, with the Adidas stuff. And yeah.
So I'm really excited by that. And the truck's amazing because you kind of get your own little space there and you can put stuff and you know it's going to stay there. Like my locker's got the stuff I need. I go straight to it. So those little things, it really does help when you've got to move stuff in and out of crates and in and out of backs of vans and bags and all the rest of it. It's hard. So yeah. I think they'll notice the improvement from a functional standpoint, should we say?
Yeah, and a new team truck for Specialized, I believe, coming this year. The old one was 10 years old. Not a small truck. It was a pretty nice spot, but it'd be interesting to see what they bring. So new truck, but similar team.
Yeah.
Loic, Finn, Jordan. Stability's got to be a good thing to some extent, right?
Yeah, that team's one of these teams that always has stayed, I'd say, small and very focused on what they're doing. I think Finn had a tough year this year, obviously, 20 and 25, and they seem to all get on pretty well, you know, and I know that they each want something different. And I think what Loic wants isn't always what Finn wants. And I think the team are pretty good at balancing that from the outside.
Yeah.
And Nico Vulio's joining them as well.
Okay, yeah, I saw a picture of him with them in awesome. New Zealand. So that's a legit...
Well, that's what I understand. Yeah. I think he's going to be joining them trackside. So, yeah, I was a huge Vulio's fan growing up.
Same, yeah. Hard not to be.
It's kind of cool to see him back. He'll bring like an old school, very much performance driven, straight talking vibe, I would think.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure Loic will lean into that. I think it's going to be really cool.
That's cool. All the old dogs on the hill then. We've got Fabian, Vulio's, PE. We get the old rivalries out.
I know. Exactly that. It's no surprise really, is it? It's just like in any sport, in soccer, you know, some coaches are obviously ex-footballers who just know how it goes, and
yeah,
I think they can. Sometimes you can get carried away with the new thing. Someone's doing something different, therefore, hey, we should be trying that, and you kind of need someone to bring you back and go, no, we need to focus on this. This is this pathway that we're on, and we're going to stick to it. And they can then take a step back and overview it, and that's what Greg Minar's really good at with Norco. He's really good at understanding that. We don't need to worry about that stuff. This is the stuff we need to get right first. Let's focus on that. And that helps drive people who are otherwise caught up in their mobile phone and a million different videos that are coming at them and social media and, God, that looks good, but it's not fast. You know, Sharp in the corner isn't fast, but it looks bloody brilliant when it's Sven's taking a photo of it. So all of these things kind of come into play, don't they?
Yeah, it's a complex beast, isn't it, to solve? But yeah, it'd be cool to see how Vulio's gels with that team. I think him and Loic are kind of mates from like some
Same
video stuff that I saw. Yeah, that'd be cool. There are some juniors listed on that team this year, which would be new. So this is where I will probably butcher names. Ava Chemet-Legrange in junior women's and Marcel Barjina Navarro in junior men's. Not names that I know, but I'm excited. If Specialized have spotted them, then there's got to be something.
Specialized have got, they're not names I'm familiar with, I'll be honest, but Specialized have got a good link with this Gen S. And I'd say that might be one of the ways they're bringing them through. And that is a good setup. I think this longer term development, bringing on a rider a little younger, giving them exposure to the factory setup to show them the sort of the pathway that you can take is really beneficial. And if you can get someone in early from a sponsor's point of view, if you can sign them then you've got them for, you know, multiple years.
Yeah.
And you can use the expertise from their factory squad to help coach them and train them and prepare them and set the bikes up. So it'll be really interesting to see if they are sort of within the Gen S camp or whether it's under that 10. I honestly,
it's not clear. It's just from the rider listing from the UCI, but yeah, interested to see what happens there. Another team adding some junior talent this year is Orbea FMD. They've got Ely Morrison, who I think is a UK junior female, and then Cole Hulsebos, who I assume is Ellie's younger brother.
I believe so.
Yeah, so that's cool. There's like a lot more junior support in general over the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, and I'm really glad to see it. I think the fear with the way the World Cup has gone is that it's just going to be purely at the sharp end, but we all know that doesn't last very long, does it? You know, you need this next wave coming through. And if you can have people be supported in the right way, you get them on a sensible program. Essentially, you try and cut out the noise a bit earlier, I think.
Yeah.
And you help take pressure off families who it must be very, very difficult to, you know, you're running your kids around, you're financing it, you're maybe not really clued up on how to work on a bike or what's the best thing or where do I invest my money? What do I do? And if you've got someone like Tony with the experience, he's done it with his own kids, he's probably a good guy to have in your corner.
Yeah, it's a fair point, actually. There are a lot of parents out there that sacrifice a huge amount to take their kids around the country, around the world, and give them the best leg up. So, yeah, getting the talent onto teams sooner rather than later and getting that support's got to help, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And also I think the team, there's a duty of care that the team have then when you've got a young person. I actually think that's a good responsibility to have. I think it's important. I really feel as though it helps the team environment, and if it's done well, which, you know, I'm sure it will be, that person can be nurtured in that environment and sort of see how they fit in within it.
In what way would you say having a junior kind of helps the team environment? Is it like a family feeling thing, or?
I think, well, if you were to take it to the complete opposite end, you've got a group of young men all hanging out on the road doing what they want around, you know, around the world, and things can kind of get loose, should we say?
Yeah, okay.
You can.
Yeah.
I probably don't need to explain any more than that.
Yeah.
But if you create an environment that has a bit more structure, because you're trying to look after a person in terms of give them a good environment to thrive in, there's some things that have no place there.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's a positive thing. I've really felt with Norco having juniors, especially junior female, I've taken on that as a huge responsibility. Like, I'm not willing for it not to be a nice place. I'm not willing for her to feel alienated or anything that could make her think, bloody hell, this isn't a very nice place to be. And because of that, I think generally everyone benefits from it. So it takes some thought, but I think it's nice. And maybe that's my age showing because I'm a parent. Maybe it's this sort of paternal instinct that, you know, I've got towards these younger people now, to just want them to be happy, to work hard, to be accountable, and everything else sort of flows from that.
Yeah, it makes sense that it would benefit the rest of the squad as well, right? If it's a happy environment to be in, and
absolutely,
yeah, lacking in too much looseness, shall we say? Rumours, though, that juniors were not going to be part of World Cup from 2027 onwards. Have we heard any more on that? Is that still just a rumour that bubbles around?
So I heard that rumour from about a dozen junior parents,
right?
But they're the only people I heard it from.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of uncertainty. I'm not sure it's been clarified very well, but I think it is staying.
Yeah.
Maybe the race days might change in the future, or the schedule might change in the future.
Fair.
We're still waiting for some update. Unfortunately, we're still waiting on quite a lot of updates on certain things.
Yeah.
But a junior category, I think, is an important category, but it's where it fits into the race weekend.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's an interesting balance to get right. There's only a certain amount of hours in the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Another team adding a bit of junior talent, Nuke Proof Axis, formerly Intense, adding Camden Rutherford, another fast Kiwi pinner. Saw some footage of him riding Queenstown recently. Definitely not hanging around. Stylish guy as well. It's going to be cool to see what he can do. I think he was sort of part of the team last year and shadowed and attended some events, but they've been getting him ready, but he hasn't raced World Cup yet. So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think Joe and Ollie are doing a great job there and working really hard to obviously get the new brand involved as well with Nuke Proof. That's worth saying. They had a big change there to get, you know, that equipment on and get testing it. And Joe was out in San Remo when I was out there. I saw him briefly, and they're working hard. And I think from everything I hear about this young lad, I think he really is fast, and that would be great for the team. I do think that it's cool to see Millie thriving there, and then, you know, Camden coming through. It could be a nice platform for them to really perform.
It's an exciting team. I think it was in pretty much Joe's words that they could go from team of the day to everyone completely blowing up and having a nightmare. Like, there's so much potential in that squad that it's going to be exciting to see, and it's a big change, right? That move to Nuke Proof hopefully gives them a little bit more budget to play with as well, and a very different bike. It's going to be interesting to see how the team get on.
I think so. I think the bike is a kind of known quantity. And I think that's a good thing because it was always a good bike. I'm not sure how different it was to the one Ronan rode, for example. So these sorts of things, it's had proven success and it works. And I think Joe is probably still trying to balance that player manager sort of vibe. He's still racing to a very high level and still can ride a bike very well, but he's kept so busy with all these other plates that he spins. I don't know how he gets time to go to sleep, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. Fair play. He's got youth on his side, mate. That's what it is. Yeah. Some significant change to Pivot Factory racing. So Ed and Matt stepping away. Dylan Maples joining the squad, which, like you say, sort of, I'm sure they would have kept him at Comments at Muckoff if they could have done, but I think that's an exciting signing for Pivot, and I'm interested to see how he settles in there because there's a lot of talent in that lad.
He's a lovely guy as well. And that was an interesting move because I know that he had options, should we say. I think that a lot of people are interested in him, and I know that Thibaut was sad to see him go. I thought, and he really wanted other team managers and other teams to know that Dylan's a good guy, and his hands are sort of tied, and that's sort of how it's got to be.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think Dylan's chosen the fit for him, and that's always good because sometimes you don't have that luxury, do you?
No, you go where you need to go.
You
almost.
go where you need to go, but it's because of I've got a little insight into some of these things that go when you hear certain things, and he's riding certain bikes. I think he had some options in terms of what he could have ridden.
Good.
So he's gone there.
Yeah.
And that team. I listened to your chat with Eddie actually on the plane the other day, and I thought he's an insightful guy, isn't he? He's a clever guy. Sometimes he doesn't want you to know he's clever.
No, he is.
But he is.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting, his comment about the kind of the team atmosphere, and those guys had been together for a long time together, and it was a real core group, and that's changed. And for Bernard, who's sort of staying on, he's never going to replace those two. You're not going to be able to do that. And I think you've got to accept that was a time, and now you're in a new time. And Dylan is part of that new time. And you can still have a really good time, and the atmosphere will be good, and the performance needs to be good as well, because I think their sort of status is really heavily linked with how those boys deliver on the track. So
for sure.
They'll really need to do that.
Yeah, and they've kept Roger Vieira. First time I think Roger's had a full off season where he's not had to work, which is kind of exciting, right? Because again, I think he has potential to be he is a very fast rider, but an even faster rider. So I'm keen to see what he can do after a consistent winter of training and that pro level support.
Absolutely, completely. Couldn't agree more. And it reminded me, we're talking pre-COVID, 2017, 2018. Him and his brother came to a fitness coaching workshop I delivered at the university, and they were sort of hungry, not a lot of support, very fast. And to sort of see, his brother's obviously had some pretty big injuries, and to see Roger kind of come all the way through that to this factory level, he sort of had to fight every step of the way. And he was one of these people I wondered whether he'd almost be an eternal privateer. But everyone wants him to do well. He's one of those guys that when he's on the track, everyone wants him to do well. And that won't change. I think we're feeling as though he's sort of made it to a setup that he deserves, really.
Yeah, and got his own merch brand this year, I think. Shout out Bora Bora.
Really?
So yeah, he's going all in. It's just cool. He had a lot of swagger about him in Medina, which is nice to see, because I think it's deserved. He's put the graft in, and I'm keen to see where he can get to now he's got that support. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fair play to Pivot Factory for getting behind him. Scott have got spending in the off season. They've added Dakota Norton and Jess Blewett to an already pretty heavily stacked squad. That's going to be really interesting, I think.
That's a cool squad. I saw Dakota the other day. He was in San Remo as well, actually. He'd just done a camp with Scott, and it's getting Dakota happy on a new bike. That will be the challenge. Yeah. I think he's getting there on that bike, and he's struggled to get as much riding in early season, I think, because of some weather and this, that, and the other back home. But he'll be one of these people that if he's happy, he's very, very deadly. And you saw how he came through last season. He's still really struggling with that injury. I think he's still limited in what he can do with that injury to a certain extent. But he's able to ride a bike very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And he knows what he likes. So I think that combination, that working environment. So that'd be cool. And Jess, I think Jess is one of these girls that, again, probably needs to be very happy in her environment to really thrive and make it feel fun for her.
Yeah.
I don't know why she wouldn't have had that at Cube, and I don't really know what's happened there, but it'll be interesting to see how she sort of settles on the bike and with that crew. And they've got Flo trackside, again, another great guy, very experienced, very high level racer.
Yeah.
He's kind of good for, again, cutting out the bullshit, shall I say, and just saying, look, this is what you need to do and this is how you need to ride, and you'll get the success from it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see how they go, because Benoit didn't have the best of seasons last year, I think it's fair to say, and I'm not sure how much of that was the team or the bike or just bad luck, because there's definitely some bad luck in his season.
For sure. And hopefully Benoit's done some of the work that Dakota can now profit from.
Yeah.
I think that's what everyone hopes. And Benoit, I think, would be a really cool teammate as well. His Instagram, he does some quirky stuff, doesn't he?
He's riding some janky stuff.
He
Yeah.
really does ride some quirky stuff.
Yeah.
But I like his openness, and he's very self-deprecating. He's not sad. He doesn't mind taking a mick out of himself, and I think that's a lovely trait to have in someone, because they're not too big for their boots.
Yeah, and Ethan as well, right? Like, I don't think we've seen the best of Ethan since that Mont-Saint-Anne run a couple of years ago. Another sort of relatively up and down season. So
and quite quiet. Again, he's kind of quite quiet in terms of the media he gathers, and kind of goes under the radar. So he rides a bike quickly. So
they all do, don't they? Malik Boatwright to Atherton Racing. So another New Zealand rider. I spent some time near his hometown recently, and there's a lot of Malik supporters around there, and a lot of people kind of tipping him to be one of the next best. So that's going to be interesting to see. Have you been involved with him? Do you still get involved with the Atherton lot through coaching and stuff? Or
I've been with him today, actually.
Okay,
I've literally come straight from there. So I was with Charlie Hatton and two other Charlies, Toomer and Baxter, who are sort of in their youth development squad. So I work with those guys, but no one else on the team. So I'm not sure about how this lad's sort of training and preparing. Yeah. But the bike's good, and Charlie's, I think, as we're talking, just behind us up on that hill. I think he's riding his bike right now. So he's gone for some laps after coaching with his mechanic. So they're always working hard, and Charlie's off to Portugal next week.
Nice.
And they're putting in the work. He's very methodical. Charlie's very methodical, and he's got back after that horrible crash in Queenstown.
Yeah, it's a hand injury, right?
Yeah, hand injury. It's just coming good. That's what we were sort of working through today to see what he could tolerate and how it was. But that was nasty. But he's a good teammate. I think he was lovely today because he's such a professional. So I think anyone on that team, I think Malik will benefit from it, because Charlie's very open. He wants you to do your best. He's not got an ego that will get in the way. He's not going to be salty. And I think anyone who's teammates with Charlie Hatton would probably only say it's a very positive thing.
Yeah, excited for that move. Uno are back, and they're picking up the Rogue Racing squad for the year. Simon Chapelet, Davide Palazzari, Filippo Muracelli, and Vero Vidman. They had some interesting tech on track last year, that lot. They were definitely playing around with a few interesting bits and pieces, and bringing in an engineering powerhouse like Thessarojo on board is not going to hurt, is it? That's going to be quite interesting to watch.
That'd be a cool team, I think. I'd say that Rogue Racing probably were the team that punched most above their weight last year.
Yeah, fair.
And they really got that bike working incredibly well. So it kind of made people think, they're performing here. And I'd say they could have won Andorra potentially without a crash, you know. So the performance level's there. And Uno, I've got a bit of a soft spot for Uno, because I really like the aesthetics of it. I like the kind of the tech behind it as a fan, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I like what Cesar does. He's a clever guy. I like the fact he's into his enduro and his moto, and sort of some KTM links in there somewhere with the design stuff. So I'll be watching that. I'll be looking at that bike.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. And the riders as well, right? There's potential in all of that lot, I would say.
Yeah, I think those guys just show blazing speed, but maybe lack a bit of consistency, and that is one of those things where if they put down a run, they're very high up a timesheet, so that team would needs that early on in the season to really sort of buoy things and lift them. And I know Uno kind of came in, but it was a little bit half-cocked last time. I remember Greg Williamson and Taylor were on the team, I think, but it didn't really last very long. So I think the integration with the factory will be important.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think they would have that, just to develop what they're doing.
Excited to see. Another rider that had some fast results and also some less than perfect weekends was Bodie Burke. When he stays on a bike, pretty lit, but he had a few biggies. Joined this new Crestline squad.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah. It's, I don't know much about the sort of what's behind Crestline, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's really if you can get the bike where you need it, and if you can get the products on the bike and the support of the race, because that I think is a big challenge. If you've got a good support structure around you and you can get the bike where you need it, then a Crestline will be a great bike to have. But I think that if you haven't and you're struggling with getting that setup right, that's where the challenges will come for some of these teams that are coming in or some of these riders. So I don't know much about the setup, but it'll be interesting to see it, on the ground.
Yeah. And Casper Woolley is a rider that, again, I don't think we've seen the best of. Like, he's had some pretty horrific injuries through his enduro and downhill career. Made the switch over to downhill with YT this year. Obviously, the YT thing imploded. I sort of thought maybe that was it. He'd announced a coaching business, and I was like, okay, that's his next thing. And then he's on MS Racing for the year, which is pretty exciting. Yeah,
that was a bit of a surprising move for me, because I thought exactly the same thing. I thought he would probably stop racing. So these are the cards I've been dealt, and there we go. But I think MS again, as a team, underperformed last year. I think they struggled. I think it was sad to see such a big setup not get results we know they can get. And sometimes when things go against you, it's hard to sort of battle back and keep everything positive. So if they can start well and sort of show their potential, it would be great to see them do well.
Yeah. And then Matilda Melton moves off Commencal Azor onto Yeti Factory, moves up to Elite. Maybe another name that didn't get the airtime that it deserved last year. She had a second in Lake Placid. Clearly some talent there. I'm interested to see what that move can do for her.
Yeah, that's those junior girls, because I was up there with Lena, you sort of saw them preparing and you saw their approach, and it really was a next level from where junior women used to be. So they very much treat it as, they're athletes and their sport is racing bikes. Where before, I think that maybe it wasn't the case. They were there to ride their bikes and see how they got on. So she'll probably, with the support of Yeti, kind of maybe move up again, or feel as though she's more front and center in that support, where maybe I guess you wouldn't with Valley moving into that setup.
Yeah,
so
true.
That could work really well.
Yeah, interesting. Anything you can think of that I've missed? I'm sure I probably have missed a few moves. Apologies to anyone we've not talked about, but is there any obvious ones?
Put me on the spot now. No, I think you've covered it.
If people can let us know in the comments if we've missed it, I'm sure we have. I'm sure we have, and apologies to whoever that is. We've got a year of stability in the format, give or take, right? For the first time in a while, like Warner Brothers have made ongoing tweaks to qualifying formats and bits and pieces and numbers of riders and stuff over the few years. I think we're relatively stable. Has that helped you guys as a team to prepare for the season?
Yes, it has. The areas that are proving more of a challenge, I would say, are the flyaway races and the logistics of them. And that has taken a lot of energy for the people that are looking after carnets and shipping stuff and getting the right product in the right place at the right time. And those sorts of things are much more difficult. And I'm sometimes surprised at how these things are put together when you look at them going, is that really going to, that's going to be hard to do, flying coast to coast within kind of a day and getting all our stuff moved across for the last two rounds.
Whistler Lake Placid.
Yeah, that's going to be really challenging. And I'm surprised that we've been put in such a pinch, shall we say, but that's how it is. So we roll with it. And the South Korea event is going to be fascinating. I'm very excited to be going. It's going to be a real change. And I think because of those things, if we also had a race format change, it could really make things tricky. I mean, by the end of the year, you'd think we've got the hang of it, but the first race being a brand new venue, no one's ever really been there before, done anything, it's going to be tricky to get our heads around. So at least it's nice to know that we know the format.
The way the race weekend shapes up is going to be similar. What do we know about South Korea so far?
What I can tell you is I know that John Fernandez was involved with building the track from Madeira.
Mm-hmm.
He's a clever guy. He'll build a good track. I know Marcus Stockel's been involved with it.
Yeah.
And I don't know a great deal else. I really don't know too much. I know Patrice. So some of the managers I think have actually been out there to check it out and do sort of a recce. And there was some information going back and forth that some of the logistical limitations.
Okay.
I think there's some. I might be talking out my arse here, but I'm pretty sure it's quite hard to hire a car out there, for example.
Yeah, okay.
So some of these things that might get overlooked, and I think the supermarket might be 40 minutes away, and certain things will be a challenge. And those are often, no one talks about these things because you don't see any of it.
It's not very glamorous,
No,
is
it's
it?
not a very glamorous thing to talk about. But we all need to eat and we all need to get from A to B. And we're not going to be able to, it's hard to get probably all the equipment we need out there, and depending on how you're shipping it out, you're going to get e-bikes out there, or you're going to be on trail bikes, and I don't really know the lift access situation. So all of these things there's a lot of unknowns. I think there was some shipping discussions and they kind of stalled quite early, which I think some of the managers have been very frustrated by. Me too. I'm very surprised that it's not been more forthcoming in certain areas to say, hey, let's do whatever we can to help you get this stuff out there, because unfortunately flyaway races are amazing, but they put a much bigger burden onto a team, both financially and logistically.
Yeah.
So it's hard. And I think maybe the disparity between the biggest budget teams and the lowest budget teams will be noticed more.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Because maybe you can't fly all the staff out that you want because of the airfare. Maybe you can't bring out the product you need. Maybe you don't have someone to tap into who's got 5 turbo trainers at the local dealership that you could get, or something on brand like that. So these are the sort of things that make these races more of a challenge.
Yeah.
But you have to look on the bright side and you have to go, we're going to South Korea to race our bikes. It's going to be something different.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting for the fans for sure. It doesn't mean it's going to be necessarily an easy week for you guys. Do we know what the pit's going to look like?
No.
Okay.
No. There again, discussions on tents, and you can hire tents or bring tents in, and you're quoted certain prices on certain things. And it's a bit of a menu to choose what you're going to maybe take, what you're going to hire, and they're offering you the option to hire certain things, tables and chairs and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But some people will obviously want to bring them out to be on brand, but then maybe leave them out there, because if there's a multi-year deal, it makes sense to potentially have multiple setups now.
Yeah.
So you can leave something in a spot and it just stays there safely. So it takes a bit of investment, I'd say, and a lot of thought and planning. And you want it to look good, because I do think it's a fear if it's not presented very well and you're in plain white tents and it doesn't show what downhill can be.
Yeah, it takes the edge off it for sure.
It can take the edge off it, and especially if the weather goes against us, you've got a real battle there.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that the pit setup is good and looks good and is really presentable.
Yeah, me too. How far off North American trucks are we? I think we've seen a little bit of that in the past, like where you'd have a European truck and a North American truck. We got 2 rounds there this year. Are we getting any closer to that?
Well, there might be 3. I think soon there could be 3 rounds.
Yeah.
The big problem is this: if you were to take a truck and have it parked in Whistler, you were to finish the race and you were to put a truck driver in it and say, off you go, sunshine, he ain't going to make it there in time.
They don't get to Lake Placid in time. Yeah.
So that's your big problem. And this is where, we all need to work together for the logistics, because if they want it to look nicer and they want teams to invest in a North American truck, there has to be a logical route to actually get it there.
Yeah.
Because if you've got a big truck, you need someone who's got the right license, blah, 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 and you'd have to have 2 or 3 drivers just on rotation. So these are certainly challenges. It wouldn't surprise me down the line whether there's more stable setup, shall we say, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It is. Lake Placid was hard in terms of, we had a good tent, but we had U-Haul vans and kind of grass underfoot and dusty, and it wasn't what we were used to, and we made it work, and everyone does make it work. But sometimes a team that can kind of cherry pick an old motocross truck or link in with a sponsor and have something like that, it really gives them a big advantage.
Yeah, it makes a big difference, right? And a few of the teams definitely managed to do that last season. What have you learned from last year? What changes are you kind of looking to make in the team from last year to this year?
That's a good question. That's a really good question. What have I learned from last year? I've learned it's a long year.
Yeah.
And I think you need to kind of keep the rider looking forwards, kind of keep everything moving in the right direction, because we saw, I'd say, using Danny as an example, kind of struggled to get the bike where we wanted it for him. And then he kind of showed where he could be at Lenzerheide. And I think that was really exciting. And you sort of see these areas where, again, I guess it's the up and down. It's trying to keep it on a level. The logistics are hard because you're moving from race to race. And I think you want the team to get on very well, give them their time together, give them their time apart, and try and bring them in fresh. The travelling's the really hard thing. Flying people back and forth across the pond kind of starts to, I think, affect performance. I think once you've done it so many times,
yeah,
and that's really hard, getting over jet lag. And the difficult thing is the optimal time to fly someone in from a performance standpoint might not be possible from a logistical standpoint or from a financial standpoint. So I'd say bringing more awareness to that side. And we've had discussions about, it's probably not right for me to name the names of the riders, but some of them wanting to maybe be in Europe a bit more, kind of how they're going to base themselves, because they understand it. And the relationship with Norco from our point of view has been brilliant in terms of the development.
Nice.
They're developing the bike. I'd say it's a good evolution this year. And so that's really cool. The riders know where they're at, but the fit is better. These little bits that are going to make the difference for them. And we've already had some good testing. And that's, again, something I think we learned last year, is the importance of doing some baseline testing, so that you're not testing at a race weekend, because you just can't do that.
The off seasons have evolved a lot in the last few years. It feels like we've gone from, I mean, Greg would famously talk about putting his downhill bike at the end of the season and picking it up a couple of weeks before the next season. That's not happening anymore, is it? There's a lot more downhill bike time, a lot of testing, a lot of travel kind of out of season as well now.
Yeah, we've been on 2 camps already, and we were due, unfortunately I was quite ill, so we didn't do a December camp that would have been planned, so they would all been at the University of me in December. Then we were in January in south of France, and then we've just come back from Italy. And then we're sort of moving into like pre-season race phase, should we say, coming up. So there'll be more travelling and more racing, and we're kind of splitting the European and the North American crew for that, which I think is sensible.
Yeah, seeing more of that as well, I think, like budget conscious pre-season planning. Like not everyone's at a team camp every week. It seems to be a bit more individual or localized stuff going on.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be. But I also, to me, that it shows, talking about Commencal Markov, for example, if you've got people that live relatively close to each other and have the opportunity to be with each other more regularly, there's definitely, I can see the benefits of that. I really can see those benefits, because you get to ride with other very fast riders with support to set the bike up, with a thought process, as opposed to just going out, shredding at home. So I think that structure is coming, and I'd say the downhill bike is becoming more of a tool for their job. So when they're on the bike, there's normally a reason to be on the bike. We're lucky that we get to ride other bikes, e-bikes and pump track and road bikes and all these trail bikes, everything you can think of, where maybe the motocross riders, that's the only bike, you know what I mean? They're only on that one thing going around that track a million times. But I'd say there is a shift in that. The downhill bike is normally only ridden very quickly.
Any thoughts on like new tech or tools or fads that we might see this season? Like we've seen the tuned mass damper fad the last couple of years. Would you predict anything else, or even in the trackside world, like
so it's hard for me to say from the engineering standpoint, because I've not really seen that side. We've not had anything really quirky come about. The tune mass dampers is a fascinating one, because I don't know how much they work. I've not tried one. It seems as though some bikes or some riders like them, but from the research I've done, it can only tune out a certain frequency, and that's fine if you're presented with one frequency, but I don't think a downhill track is. I know trackside, really being trackside, we're trying to understand what is fastest down the hill. and people are using side-by-side screens. Some people are using timing. There's a lot of effort that's being put into that, and I know that there was some timing systems that were being used a couple of years ago, and maybe they're going to try and bring that back, but it's quite hard to actually implement.
Yeah.
And I do think that one size doesn't fit all. I do think from one rider being on one line to another rider being on another, it's horses for courses. So from that side of it, I'd say that it could be personnel. I think that you might find there's just more people on the track. Which,
even more.
Yeah.
That's gone up a lot in the last few years, eh?
This is it, because the riders want that feedback, and it's really hard to be everywhere. And some tracks warrant that,
Yeah.
but I do think a lot of tracks don't, because we've been there so many times. We know which is good. You know, once you've been there enough, don't worry about the outside, because that's going to disappear by race day. You know, so those are the sorts of things that maybe experience can bring to help kind of cut out that noise.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not what is being brought, but what you can actually cut back on. What can you reduce?
Yeah.
Take the stress away from a rider. Give them just the key points that they need. Reassure them that you've got a good plan for them, and that probably clears the mind a little bit.
Yeah.
You know,
simplifying the race week as much as possible, because there's a lot. The riders are bombarded with information and schedules and tasks, and there's a lot going on in a race week, right?
There really is, and I try and take that burden from the riders and just give them what they need to know, and try and push back on some of the. I remember many a discussion with various sponsors and media and Warner Brothers about when they could and couldn't have access to the athlete, and they're not always happy to hear that. But if you've got an athlete that's got to win the race, the only reason you're interested in this athlete is because they're doing well. And if they're doing all of your jumping through hoops, they're not going to do very well. So you'll just talk to someone else next week, you know. And I'm becoming more and more cynical about that, because I think there's flavour of the month in a lot of things. And my job is to try and keep them flavour of the year, should we say?
Yeah, it's a tricky balance, isn't it? Because the media attention is partly, or is a lot of what brings the money into the team. But you need the performance as well.
Well, there you go. The performance is what brings the money into the team, and the media cover it. I think we're not at a point where the media don't cover performance.
Yeah, true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so you don't need to say too much until a race is done, and then you can say your piece.
Yeah.
And everyone will be proud of what you've done.
Yeah, true.
So it's just getting that balance. But I understand, don't get me wrong, that if a company is investing in the team, they want their assets from that. And I'm more than happy to work with them. And don't get me wrong, I'm not some belligerent fool who doesn't get this. I do try.
No, I
but sometimes I have to be like, no, that's not going to work. Or, you know, from this time would be acceptable.
Yeah, I think there's an appreciation, and you can see it at World Cup. I've been around enough events now. You know when athletes are accessible and happy to have a chat, and you know when to leave them alone. And there's a certain time in the week, and it varies a little bit from rider to rider, but it's not a massive band where everyone's just locked in. We're in race mode now. We haven't got time to chat.
No, come back at 4:15.
Yeah, exactly.
Come back at 4:15 and we'll chat then, no problem at all.
Yeah.
It is quite hard because there's a lot of running about, and like you say, the input with the bikes and the sort of setup side of it, and not having that much chance that you need to get up to speed early. You know, you need to learn the track and get up to speed early. So it's
a hectic week.
It's a great challenge.
It's a hectic year. Are you still managing to fit Milway Performance products into your year? It's not much time left for that. But.
Yeah, it is hard. I have been working really hard on that. We've designed an adjustable bench.
Ah, nice.
I've done the V1 proto.
So like an incline.
So an incline. And a cool side note. So at the University of Birmingham, we have a very high level Paralympic athlete who's a basically his sport is bench pressing.
Yeah.
And they're taking him into a performance lab to kind of assess him, and they want to use my bench as the platform for him to use.
That's
and
cool.
This guy benches 200 kilos at 59 kilo body weight, and it's just insane.
Wow.
So to have like the product validated in that way for me is just brilliant. And really exciting. The reason I do it, and therefore I want to make sure that the incline bench is as rigorously put together.
Yeah.
So we've been working with making sure that the foam's right, the angle's right, the weight's right, so it's not too heavy.
Yeah.
It's not been built far from here actually.
Okay.
So I've been up there, picked up a V1, worked out the kinks of what I wanted to change. Just got the designs back for V2 when I was in Italy. And now I've got to sort out some foam CNC kind of cutting. So yeah, that's the stuff that my brain can kind of wander off in another direction.
bit of a rest from World Cup.
Bit of a rest. I'd say my biggest challenge is the sales and the marketing side. I don't have the talents or the skill set for that all the time.
Yeah.
But if there's anyone who's good at sales out there, you
get in touch.
Drop me a message. I could use your help.
Nice one. Hit the DMs. Nice one. It's been an absolute pleasure to catch up, mate. It always is. It's a fun time of the year to speculate about what we've got coming up. No doubt the athletes and teams will deliver us an amazing season of racing. They've not failed us yet, so I'm excited for a good 2026. If people want to follow the team, where are they looking these days?
Yeah, Norco Race Division.
Yeah.
The team has some great coverage and it's a great media. Thomas does an amazing job. Carl does a good job. It's great to see they're covering what we're doing, and some of the stuff we've had to be embargoed. So I think soon, with the branding and the bikes and the bits, people will see more.
Yeah.
And then if anyone's interested in what I'm doing, Alan Milway on Instagram, I sort of try and show what I'm doing with the coaching.
Yeah.
And
Milway Performance Products.
And Milway Performance Products as well. Yeah, check that out. It's been like, for me, again, it's supporting the athletes in what they're doing, and that's always the drive. And I'm so lucky I spend so much time in so many different gyms. So to travel around the world training in different gyms, you sort of get a feeling what people want. And yeah, I want to try and make it.
Nice. Good stuff, mate. We'll stick links to all of that in the show notes. People can find it. But yeah, best of luck for the season ahead. And we'll see you on the flip side. I
appreciate your time. This gets me really excited about the season ahead. And I can't wait to get stuck in, to be honest.
Good stuff. Nice one. Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Chris.